Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Hummingbird Arcana Podcast. I am Jo Hummingbird. I'm an Evolutionary Astrologer and an Usui Reiki Master, here to help you deep dive into the worlds of astrology, Reiki, Mysticism, and so much more in this life. And today, I am coming to you fresh, having just woken up. I have some peace and quiet around my living space today, and I thought I would take advantage of that opportunity while I had the wave to ride in on. So, this one's going to be fun. And that is also why I sound a little bit nasally, a little bit tired, a little unenthused. I promise it's not because I'm not excited to talk. I'm just coming into the world freshly. I haven't gotten up and going fully yet. I haven't even made myself a meal, but I felt called to utilize this time to come chat with you guys, to come share some thoughts on something that I think is pretty important in astrology and something that I don't hear every astrologer talk about. This isn't like shade on any other astrologers. This is just the fact that I only hear like a handful of astrologers talk about this kind of a thing, and it's not really widely pushed within the pop world of astrology. But I wanted to come in here and talk about timing your rest periods, your action periods, and your processing periods. And what I mean by that, there's like a whole other subfield of astrology called Zodiacal Releasing. And if you haven't heard of that, I will do probably some form of an episode on it more in depth. So if you want me to do that, let me know down below in the comments or like this video so I know that I can do that episode and that's what you guys want. But Zodiacal Releasing is an ancient Hellenistic predictive astrology tool that utilizes the cycles of the planets in 4 different categories, basing themselves somewhat off of like decades and years, and then off of years in another group, and then off of like weeks and months in another group, and then sometimes days and weeks in another group. And these timing tools can help you to find out when things are happening to you that is of significance, or when you need to just kind of chill out and take it easy. I have been utilizing this tool for the last somewhere around like 2 to 3 months, and it has been insane to not only look at what's going on in my life in the current present day and how Zodiacal Releasing affects it, but also taking a look back at other life events that I've had that I've considered significant for myself in my timeline, and watching how Zodiacal Releasing points directly to those points in my life. So if this is something that you sound like you might be interested in, then go ahead and keep listening. Give the video a thumbs up so I know that you're liking this topic, that you're resonating with it so far, and comment down below. Is Zodiacal Releasing something that you'd be interested in learning more about? Again, I want to make another episode on it. I want to dive deeper into it than just utilizing it as a tool in astrology. But in tandem with Zodiacal Releasing, we will also be talking about transits today. And if you didn't listen to my Astrology Basics episode, or you didn't take my Astrology Basics Masterclass, I will link both of those down below in the description and in the show notes, so that way you can have access to that, because it's not that expensive of masterclass. It's $33, and it's not like I'm gypping you out of hundreds or thousands of dollars of your time and your energy and your hard-earned cash because you want access to astrology and information. That's ridiculous. Not that I don't value my work like that. I do. I just think that in a day and age where everything is just so inflated in price and so inaccessible from like a spiritually gatekeeping standpoint, then why not make that more accessible for people? But I digress. If you want to join that little digital cohort, if you want to access that Google file for lifetime, and if you don't, necessarily want to go and wait until the springtime whenever I have the spring 2026 cohort or the fall 2026 live cohort, then, you have access to this through digital video replay with the purchase. So that will be linked down below as well for you guys, along with the Astrology Basics episodes. That way you can learn in real time for free the general, primary, elementary levels of astrology without being overwhelmed and thrown into the deep end. But I digress. Transits are mentioned in those two for me. The episode that I did on Astrology Basics and the Astrology Basics Masterclass, I did mention transits. And those are, collectively important, but they can also influence you individually. It's just a matter of being able to understand your place in the collective, as well as your place within Zodiacal Releasing and individual timing of transits and Zodiacal Releasing itself. So these are two tools that I love utilizing in tandem with each other to balance out my own individual story with how I come to play a part in the collective story. And so let's go ahead and dive in. I'm going to start with transits. Transits are going to be the current placements of the planets, the luminaries, and the heavenly bodies, and the calculated points in space, and where they are in relation to the Earth right now. And if you're a Vedic astrologer, you're probably going to come into the comments and be like, yeah, Vedic astrology is where the real transits are. You do have a point, because Vedic astrology does follow like the actual current sign and house and angle placements of the transits, the heavenly bodies, the planets, the luminaries, points in space, all that jazz. They do follow the true in the sky version of that. I'm not 100% sure as to why us tropical astrologers don't use that, but at the same time, I'm not gonna knock it, because astrology is still hella accurate either way. I find that the main difference between the two is that one is a little more rigid and predictive and puts you in a little bit of a box, versus tropical astrology, where it's not 100% lined up with what's going on in the sky per se, but it is still happening to us on a psychological level. And I do want to highlight the importance of Vedic astrology. I am not a Vedic astrologer, but I have used Vedic astrology in the past to be able to understand my own blueprint a little bit better. So if you want to take a look at Vedic astrology, there are tons of free Vedic chart calculations that display it similarly to like a Placidus or a whole sign or a tropical way for us, if you're used to reading that form of astrology like myself. But there also is the traditional like Vedic chart that is that rhombus diamond shape with all the different houses and different parts of the rhombus. So that in and of itself, and then there's like the 1 through 100 or like 500 or 600 different charts that extend as a sub timeline karmically from your natal chart in Vedic astrology. It's so deep. And that's why I don't practice it, is because 1, culturally, I don't want to infringe upon anything, and 2, I'm just, that's a huge deep dive. And to go in, it's not an opposite direction, but to go in a completely different direction than what my current astrological practice integrates. But nonetheless, I digress. The transits are, again, the current positions in which we can calculate the heavenly bodies, the points in space, the planets, the luminaries, etc. And so these are the collective points that everybody, no matter what chart you have, no matter what time you were born, no matter where you were born, no matter what family you were born into, you can always access the collective transits. You can always access the energy of what's currently going on in the sky. Sometimes you may not fully understand why it is that way, and it may not work in your favor, and it may work in favor for other people. But that's where the Zodiacal Releasing comes into play. That is where you take a look at your own chart and your own timeline and your own unfolding of your planetary cycles. And the 2 columns that I pay the most attention to in Zodiacal Releasing, if you're wanting a good Zodiacal Releasing tools that are for free online, astro.com has a pretty good one, but then zodiacalreleasing.net is my next favorite one, because they will highlight all of the peak periods, and they will put little symbols next to the loosening of the bonds and the culmination completion periods. They go pretty in depth, not in their description of everything, but in their demonstration of it, and that I truly appreciate. Astro.com doesn't have all of that definition. They'll show you the peak periods, they'll show you the loosening of the bond, but I don't necessarily remember seeing the culmination to completion symbols next to anything on Astro.com. So that's why I recommend zodiacalreleasing.net over them, but at the same time, if you're wanting a free tool, Astro.com does have that as well. So let's talk about the 2 columns again. The 2 that I take a look at the most, and I find the most relevant within Zodiacal Releasing, are going to be column 3 and column 4, because they represent the months and the weeks / the weeks and the days. And these cycles are constantly changing. They're not like the level 1 or the level 2 columns, in which they take huge spans of time in order to move through. And if you're a part of my generation, late millennial, early Gen Z type, then you won't even have moved through one of your major periods, or even a sign transition, a cycle, in your first column. You might have moved through 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 in your second column, but the only ones that are going to be moving a lot are going to be the 3rd and the 4th, which is what I pay attention to as an astrologer the most. And these periods are going to show you the signs that are next to the date in which that sign and its planetary ruler have the most influence over you. And so after you take a look at that sign and understand that planetary ruler, again, if you followed in the Astro Basics episode or in the masterclass, or you have my Astro cheat sheet, you will definitely understand the rulerships of the planets, the houses, the signs, all of it. I'll also link down below that free PDF cheat sheet as well. But if you follow that rulership of those planets and that sign, for instance, let's just say in level 3 on, today is sometime in November, but let's just say in October on level 3, you had a switch from a Sagittarius period into a Capricorn period. And so the ruler of Capricorn is Saturn. So you wouldn't just take a look at where you have Capricorn in your chart. You would also take a look at where you have Saturn in your chart. And that's when you can involve the transits. And that's when you can pull in the collective energy. Because yes, you individually would be going through a Saturnian period, a Capricornian period. And that would be very important for however many days or weeks that's there, or even months. But at the same time, you can take a look at the transits and where they're affecting the ruler of that period for you. So let's say in the transits at that time, you see, let's just pretend generationally that you have Saturn in Sagittarius, and one of the current transits that's going on right now is Mars transiting through Sag. And let's say you have Sagittarius at the first decan of your Sagittarius house. If you're using whole sign, this is what I use. If you're a client of mine and you get a reading with me, you will know that I will be using whole sign system by default. I will transition that over to Placidus system if that is your request, but I do personally read whole sign because I find it to be more predictive and also something more to work with than just a psychological archetype of a Placidus sign or a Placidus house system, excuse me. So let's just go back to that Mars example. Let's say you have Mars transiting over the Saturn in whatever house you have Sagittarius in. Let's just say 10th house, and that's Saturn's house. So maybe this doesn't mean that you're dying, because some people would see Mars and Saturn and freak out and be like, oh my gosh, that's really not good. Well, not necessarily. It's not wonderful, but it isn't wrong either, and it's not 100% bad. I want to drive that point home to everybody, and I will die on this hill. Astrology is not a death sentence, and it is not sunshine and rainbows. So I don't want you to think that just because, like, even to play devil's advocate here, that you have like Venus transiting over a Jupiter placement in your chart, that does not mean that you are having the best time of your life. That means that there are tons of things that can expand for you in the material world, whether that be a good or a bad thing. Maybe, excuse my kitty just ran across the room very, very quickly. I think she has the zoomies right now. But let's just say you develop like some sort of like a craving during that time for a specific food, and you just can't shake it, and it's all you want, and it makes you feel so safe and comfy and at home. But maybe you're stress eating, or maybe your money has a really good opportunity, but it costs you a lot of responsibility depending on the house that you have this Jupiter-Venus conjunction transit by natal and transit position. Maybe this Saturn-Mars example isn't so bad after all, because it isn't just, okay, Mars is war, conflict, destruction, and Saturn is karma, time, death. Like, you don't have to think of it that way. You can think of it, okay, well, Mars is a protector, is also a peace bringer, depending on the frequency you're reading it from. Mars is, the Roman equivalent to the Norse Tyr, who is also Tivas in the ancient Germanic practices, and he is a peace god. He's not someone who incites war unless absolutely necessary, and it is something that he puts into his efforts to maintain the integrity of human condition and compassion and peace and harmony as much as he can, so long as he does not have to become violent. And so that's what I want people to start thinking of Mars as. It's not necessarily always this combative thing. I know that we're operating from a very shadow frequency of Mars energy in our current timelines in our present day. That does not mean that we, as the educated astrologers and witches and intuitive workers and light workers and healers across the world, cannot re-anchor that collective form of that consciousness for Mars, which I think is what his energy would want us to do for him anyway in today's day and age. But I digress. So Mars is a peacekeeper, and Saturn is the gatekeeper. It's like, oh, okay, here's the boundary. Here's the line in the sand that I draw that you don't get to cross. Here is my ability to have integrity, to do the right thing for myself, but also to have that outlive me. And if this, by example, for what we're hypothetically pulling on here, that this Saturn in the 10th house in Sagittarius, Saturn in Sag is like, oh, okay, I'm going to tell the truth and only the truth, and not in the sense of like Jupiter and Sag energy of, oh my God, the truth is so empowering. It's like Saturn, the truth and the truth only. Don't give me any of that other ugly shit. I don't want any of it. I don't want your lies. I don't want your bullshit. I don't want your fluff. I don't want anything. Get to the straight heart of the matter, and let's just be real. Like, that's Saturn and Sag. And so you have Mars transiting over that, and you're in this Saturnian Capricornian Zodiacal Releasing period, which rules the 10th house, but then the next house over, the 11th house, also ruled by Saturn traditionally, has Capricorn in this example. And so your networking, your ability to make friends, your futuristic involvements, your visions for the future, your connection to the internet, and the ability to market yourself, that is very hand in hand with the fact that this would be Saturn in the 10th house, the ruler of that house, and then having Capricorn, the sign that is ruled by Saturn, in another Saturnian house next door to it. For the Zodiacal Releasing period, this would be a very powerful time to be exercising boundaries around what it is that you want to do to show up in the world, to not only benefit the truth of yourself, but other people. And so maybe this emphasizes you being able to work hard in your career. Maybe it's a time where you do kind of have to put the horse blinders on and tune out the noise and assert yourself in ways that people maybe find rough around the edges, and that's okay. But at least it'll make sense as to why you feel a little bit crazy, right? Or, it feels like things are shrinking and dying. It's not that things are being taken away from you. It's that you're climbing a mountain and they're down at the bottom and they don't want to go with you. So this is an example of how you can use Zodiacal Releasing in tandem with transits to understand when key parts of your chart are being activated, and to not be so afraid of transits, to not be so afraid of what's going on in the collective in regards to your own story. So I'll give you an example. That was an example of when to take action, right? Because Mars is an actionary planet, and Saturn is a very restrictive and boundary-setting planet. So that would be a pretty good time to act, right? So for me, I'll just give you a personal example here. The last few days in my lot of necessity, which is also the same as my lot of Eros and my lot of Fortune in Zodiacal Releasing, the lots are a whole other ballpark. But to briefly describe them, the lot of Eros is going to be your relationships, the lot of Spirit is going to be your career and your actionary pursuits, and then the lot of Fortune is going to be what you do not have control over in this life, and somewhat of your health. But for me, the lot of Spirit, the lot of Eros, and the lot of Necessity are all the same. I didn't mention the lot of Necessity for you guys because you don't really need to know what that is right now. It's a little more complicated when you start breaking down Zodiacal Releasing that way, when you get into all the 7 Hermetic lots. But the 3 that you'll hear astrologers talking about the most, and the 3 that you're going to see on Astro.com in particular, which is why I like ZodiacalReleasing.net better, because they show you all the different lots. But if you're looking at Astro.com or any other plain Astro softwares where they're showing you Zodiacal Releasing, that one is going to only show you the lot of Eros, the lot of Spirit, and the lot of Fortune. And, that's, health, money, love. And that's kind of the 3 main pop astrology points that people love to pull on for themselves. And so my lot of Eros, my lot of Fortune, and my lot of Necessity are all in the same sign, Gemini. And my Gemini is in my 6th house. So it's Mercury on Mercury. And I just went through a necessity period where it was emphasized in Virgo, which that's Virgo's house, the 6th house. It's ruled by Mercury, that's Mercury. And Mercury governs my moon and Saturn because that's in my 6th house. That's ruled by Mercury in the sign of Gemini. So double whammy with the Mercury energy, right? And I have Mercury conjunct my rising, which I'm a Capricorn rising. So there's mutual reciprocity between my Saturn in Gemini in the 6th house and my Mercury conjunct my rising in my 1st house. Now, hang on with me, because then we go through the next few signs. over the course of the days. And so I started with a Virgo peak period in my fourth column in my lot of necessity, my lot of Eros, my lot of fortune, things that are out of my control. And despite any amount of hard work I was doing or mental gymnastics to get over it or take care of my health immediately, I got a little bit under the weather this last week. And that peak period in the sign of Virgo, in this lot of necessity and fortune and Eros, that, Virgo rules my sixth house of health and routine. And that's where my Saturn and the moon are conjunct. And so, of course, despite any way that I felt about it, there was a restriction being placed there of, being like, hey, stop, rest, take your time, because your body cannot keep up with your mind right now. And that's kind of the fault of having double Mercury energy in the sixth house. It's like you try to think your way out of feeling bad and feeling gross and feeling icky. But I digress. Then we moved into not a peak period, but into a period of Libra following Virgo. Makes sense, right? And things started feeling a little bit better. I started, having less of my allergy symptoms. I started feeling a little less stuffy. My throat wasn't as sore. But then following that goes into Scorpio. And Scorpio is ruled by Mars. And where does Mars have its influence? The first house. What's there? My Capricorn rising conjunct Mercury. The Saturn ruled Mercury. What's in mutual reciprocity with that? My Mercury ruled Saturn in the sixth house of health and routine. What is the first house / the rising / that Mars energy? That's the physical body and yourself. What happened when I had that Scorpio period? I got sick again. It got worse. So, me being a Scorpio midheaven in the 11th house, ruled by Saturn traditionally and Mars, there's, double whammy. Saturn, Mars, Saturn, Mars, Saturn, Mars, Mercury. It is all across the board in mutual reciprocity with my chart, and it just shut me down. It was like, okay, you're not pumping out content. You're not putting out episodes of the podcast for a week. You're sitting the fuck down and you're getting better. And now that I'm out of the Scorpio period and into the Sag period, which started yesterday, oh my gosh, by miracle, it's almost like I wasn't sick yesterday. Whoa. And today I'm not sick. I'm just like, I started this episode straight out of waking up from bed, and I sound a little groggy, and I feel like I've gotten a little better sounding as I've recorded the episode. You tell me. It's been about 24 minutes, but regardless, I digress. This is an example of when Zodiacal Releasing can show you when to rest and when to just fucking stop, because you don't have control over it. I wasn't looking at the lot of spirit where my actions and my pursuits benefit my career. It was a lot of necessity, a lot of fortune, two things that you have no control over from the Hermetic lot perspective. And so it's just very interesting how then I take a look at the transits. And at the time last week, Mars was in Scorpio at the 29th degree, the anaretic degree, the ruler of my midheaven in the 11th house. Ooh, and then, what governs the first house is Mars. Ooh, and that's where my rising and my Mercury is. Ooh, and that mutually reciprocates the Saturn in the sixth house. Ooh, yeah. So it really hit me and was like, stop marketing, stop networking, just relax. Because in my lot of spirit, it showed benefic times for me to kind of do stuff, and I was really frustrated about it. But in the same breath, it was like, no matter what I did, because of the necessity lot and because of the lot of fortune, those are out of my control, it was forcing me to rest. My soul was like, hey, chill. I planned out this time for us to just relax and not be going balls to the wall with this dude. Chill. So regardless of if my ego wanted to, regardless of if my, my lot of spirit, which is ruled by Leo in general, and that is the ruler of the sun, the ego, the sense of self, the life force energy that wants to shine, of course, I had to put that on pause because my Geminian lot of fortune and lot of necessity were like, hey, over there with my Saturn and the moon being like, we gotta heal, dog. We gotta sleep. We gotta rest. We gotta take it easy. So these are just two really powerful examples of when Zodiacal Releasing in tandem with transits can show you whether or not you actually need to be taking action, and if you're fighting the grain, or if you're going with it and you're trusting the timing of your life. Excuse me. My kitty cat is now playing with a toy. It is a little jingle ball, but I digress. This is my number one combination when it comes to looking at people's charts. Like, yes, I do offer quick little transit readings to understand in about 15 minutes for $11 what people are feeling in regards to the transits currently, transits in relation to their natal chart, and the express transit reading as well. Of like, okay, I don't know what's going on. I just need to look at the sky right now. So I do offer that, but then I do also have a package of, being able to take a look at the transits and zodiacal releasing in a full session and read into you specifically, not just, okay, how do you play into what's going on in the world right now and why is it affecting you, but what is your narrative here? What is your place of empowerment? What part of your chart is being activated the most, or what parts of your chart are being activated the most? Because, like for me, I had multiple places in my chart being activated at once, and chances are, with zodiacal releasing, you're going to notice multiple places being activated instead of just looking at the transits and finding one place with a stellium in the sky, or one place where you have a chart ruler being affected by a transit. So that is the short little breakdown I have for you guys today. I hope this episode resonated with you. If it did, let me know what part down below resonated the most of like, oh, okay, yeah, I've used zodiacal releasing before in the past and it's been predictively crazy for me. Or, yeah, I've looked at transits and they have just absolutely shocked me in what they've been able to reveal about what's going on in my life and how I relate to my mission in the world. Or if you've used both of these before in tandem and you're a little bit more of an intermediate to advanced astrologer in practice yourself and you have a perspective that maybe I haven't even heard before. But either way, let me know down below in the comments or wherever on my socials, because I know some of you may or may not be listening on podcast streaming platforms, so there's not really a way you can comment that way. But you could leave me a 5-star review if you do feel like that's something you would like to do. I would be very grateful and appreciative if you did. Helps boost my show, helps me get more free content out there for you guys, and it helps motivate me to continue to do so. And same, but if you're on video form of this on YouTube and you get to like the video and comment and subscribe and turn on the post notification bell, all that good jazz, I'm super appreciative for any amount of support that you guys show back to me. It helps me keep going and remind me that this work is important and that what I have to share is relevant. So thank you guys for taking the time out of your day to sit with me and to listen to this, and hopefully you get to use zodiacal releasing and transits in your own sense of empowerment for your astrological blueprint. And if you want to sit down in a session and you don't want to do it yourself, I have this as an offering, and I'll link that down below in the description as well as the show notes. So thank you guys again so much for watching and for tuning in today. I'm so grateful to be assisting you in awakening to your cosmic divinity. I'm Jo Hummingbird. I'll see you in the next episode. Take care and many blessings.